Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fancast, episode 39. I'm your host, Brainmuffin, the lifting nerd. And so far, the only one that's bothered to show up tonight, all the way from New York, Ligo Mill Pro.
Do I make you horny, baby?
So Eric is out doing whatever he's doing with the family, and Kendo, who was going to join us, is decided he needed to make more money. So that's awesome. So
can you blame him?
No, I don't blame him. So it's a nice Saturday night here in Cincy Town. We got some rain earlier, and we're recording on a different night because Eric went and saw Solo last night, and he's not around to tell us what he thinks about it yet. Apparently he did a video, but hey, whatever. I'd like to get it live. So some of you may have been on the live stream or been watching the live stream last night on WCBS's main channel. Jeff asked me to join in the fun. Thinking it was just going to be Star Wars. We ended up watching Star Wars and Ghostbusters.
Lucky you.
And so I'm not dealing with a whole lot of sleep. So we finished about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I pretty much went straight to bed. So I had about an hour and a half, 2 hours before the dogs started making noise, and I didn't have to deal with them. So now, LMP, I know you were on at least for part watching and chat. I saw your chats. What did you think, at least with the part that you listened?
I mean, I was mostly just strolling around trying to be an idiot. I threw a few comments out there about what I thought was the gay show on Netflix right now, and I'll get more on that a little bit. I was having just fun, blast, listen to you guys do what you normally do. I was hoping to stay up longer than I did. I was just kind of like falling in and out of sleep after a while. Not because the show was boring. I was just really tired throughout the day. Work got the best of me, and I just wanted to relax. Plus, I had to wake up early in the morning, so there was that too.
Yeah. So were we still on Star Wars when you left?
Yeah. I was. I think I was dozing in that what time you guys started? Like around 11:30ish. I remember, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was still watching like around 12ish. I remember dozing in. I woke up a few times, and then I think like around like 1ish, close to 1, you guys were still on Star Wars. I was just knocked out. I was like, afterwards, I woke up and turned on my phone again and saw the stream was like over hours ago.
Yes. And that was all to celebrate the real Star Wars Day, so the time when Star Wars first came out in 1977 on May the 25th, and that's what was Friday night. Which comes 6 days. I mean, it's been a week now, but last week we celebrated National Cleavage Day 2018. Thank you, Wonderball. And because that one, there's several different days depending on what country you're talking about. And I don't know who celebrates it on, what was that, 5/19? Yeah, but some do, so that's what we did with it. And in particular, Proverbs 5:19. So that was apropos, and hopefully people looked it up. Yeah. Well, we read it out. We read it 3 different ways. So
it's true.
And we were quite trying to be quite respectful. Now I had a really grand designs on what to do for the thumbnail, but my Photoshop skills were just not up to snuff, and I was getting frustrated, and it was getting really late, and I had to get on to bed, so I just put those 2 in there, cropped them in, and then put the text in, and went and called it a night. Hey, and you might hear my wife laughing at something, not me. But it was a good time. I really enjoyed it. I had a few beers that I had reserved for beer reviews that now I'm gonna have to buy again because I don't have anything right now that's in a non-review state. And but it was a good time. It was fun listening. Dion fell asleep sometime during Ghostbusters. I'm not exactly sure when. He started snoring. I think Jeff fell asleep a couple times. I'm not sure. He's kind of zoned out. It was just Nick and I several times. Kendo came in. He was apparently at a concert. He was at a Ghost concert. Came in. Was quite snarky and then left. So because he had to get up for work.
Yeah, that much I do remember. I don't think he was even on that long.
No. But it was good. I think he was a couple sheets to the wind, maybe 5 sheets to the wind. But But now apparently tonight he's working overtime. But who knows? Maybe if he gets home in time, he can join us. It depends on what I'll be chatting about and how long. So this past week, we did have a sad note this past week. And I meant to do a video, but I have not. And I just because I just forgot and was lazy. So TotalBiscuit, real name is John Bain. He went by also the Cynical Brit and Total Halibut. All three names I recognize as videos on YouTube from years ago. Died of cancer at the age of 33. He had a really good voice. So I don't believe I knew he was sick. I haven't watched his videos in a long time. I kind of came across him when I started to get into WoW. I started playing, I guess, right before Cataclysm. So I guess that was 2010. And, I started, how do I do this and find this? And I would find videos online, and I came across his videos. And he apparently, when he started doing that, he had been laid off. He was unemployed, and he started making videos to try and make money. And I don't know how much of money he made on YouTube, but that was also back in the days when you could make money on YouTube. Now it takes hundreds of thousands of views to make anything. But somewhere along the line, he kind of bowed out. He had pretty nasty cancer. It was in remission, and then it came back, and apparently took him pretty quickly this past week. So I don't know if Gina, I guess that's how you say his wife's name. I don't know. Have you familiar with him at all, MP, or?
Oh yeah, most rarely actually. I'll try to be as respectful as I can, keep the jokes to a minimum if possible. But, my opinions aside on cancer as being this unfortunate check that Mother Nature has on us in humanity, it's because it's weird. It's not really a disease per se. It's more like a mutation, the growth of cells in the body. So it's one of those things that there's no cure for. Like, yes, there's ways to contain it, but really can't, like, there's no stopping it. I have people in my family who've gone through it, so I know it's a very tough time. And he's still pretty young. What was it, 33, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you don't like hearing stories like that. Someone cut down in their prime because of illness or body just giving out.
Yeah.
But when I became first familiar with him, I believe was actually after the Sandy Hook shootings, and we were watching videos about. I was going through like different things, discussions about Sandy Hook and everything, and I saw a video. I think it was called "Tragedy and Violence: Tragedy in Video Games" or something like that, and it had the Cynical Brit on it. So I clicked on it, and basically he was talking about, it's another shooting, another day, and they're going to blame video games again. And he did this really brilliant analysis about how South Korea and StarCraft, is like the number one pastime, the number one game out there, and how many gun-related deaths are there yearly, and he's like zero, and at the time it was like 0. And it was just like these statistics that, yeah, you could say maybe he skewed some things. I don't know. I didn't really look into this stuff, so take it with a grain of salt, if you will. But again, the point was that they're going to keep blaming video games for these shootings. This was before the patriarchy and blame white people became the reason why you blamed anything nowadays. So I forgot what year that Sandy Hook thing was. But it was a really fantastic video. Even my brother used it in an argument in class about how video games don't cause violence. Sadly to say, he lost the argument, not because he didn't present a good argument, but because it was more about a feelings type of thing, where people were like, well, I have kids, and I wouldn't want them playing video games that teach you how to shoot and stuff like that. So he didn't lose the argument on merit. He lost it on just the fact that people couldn't handle some basic truths and maybe thinking for themselves for once. So it was a fantastic video. I started following some of his videos. I didn't like his reviews much because a lot of them were PC games.
Right.
And I'm more of a console game type of guy. So, but occasionally he did something console-wise. And I believe the next time he made more of a bigger impact was during the Gamergate days, early on when it was the whole Zoe Quinns and Five Guy fiasco. Now, I thought there was something fishy about him because I wasn't certain what he was trying to say at first. but the message was very clear. Back when this had happened, the whole controversy of Zoe Quinn and the Five Guys, Burger and Fries controversy, he said, listen, if she indeed was getting favored by these journalists and people in the industry, then this needs to be talked about. This needs to be addressed. You can't just sweep it under the rug and call it and say sexism. You can't tell a woman what she can and can't do with her body, because that's not the argument here. And he was a really good voice. He was a really good voice for the longest of time. I know some people had, I guess, some falling outs with him. I know there was some controversial things. He like, his views had changed later on. I know politically there was some stuff too in the last couple of years. I think Brexit was something that came up. I don't know where he sat on that, but after a while I just stopped watching his stuff. I was aware that he was sick. I honestly never made a big thing out of it, because it is what it is, and it's just the game we call life. And while I'm not a big fan of him anymore, I will say the man, to his credit, did what he did, and he did it with a passion. So
yeah,
I can't fault the guy for changing his views at some point. If I agree with him or not, again, I don't remember too much. What was it that he had? What the discussion was that kind of just made me no longer watch his videos. But yeah, it's really sad. Shame, really. Guy still could be making videos right now, or he could be doing other things. But again, this is the game we call life.
Yeah, I was watching his videos, and I came across, I think it was Danger Dolan was another one that I watched videos on. And we're getting a little bit echo from your side, man. And
probably the fan.
Right. So there was another guy who eventually, because he and Danger Dolan, TotalBiscuit may have done some stuff with Danger Dolan, and there was another YouTuber that did things, and then they all kind of, Danger Dolan stopped playing the game, some other guys stopped playing. Just somewhere along the line, I started watching other videos, or stopped watching videos on how to find certain things. I was in a guild that when I started, we were all active together. We were constantly playing together, and then I don't know, somewhere halfway through Kata, I forget, people got all upset about stuff and stopped playing. I was in another guild. That guild kind of sort of made it through. We made it through Kata. We made it through the beginning parts of Warlords, and then it broke up. So, it was one of these things that I think I came across a video of his a while back, and it was like, oh, who is, I was like, I remember this guy. And then when I heard the news, I saw Derek, I think is his name. I think he's some black guy as his channel on YouTube. Saw a tweet from him about it, and I was like, wait a minute. I was kind of taken aback on what's going on, and then kind of dug in it a little bit more and found out. But yeah, he definitely had an influence. He definitely had a passion for his beliefs and supporting those things. And in some ways, he kind of changed how a lot of the WoW videos were being done on YouTube. He was the first. He just started doing stuff on the beta and was showing and playing stuff on the beta, and it was kind of an early. He was an early person to do that. Now some people do that all the time, and there's all kinds of things that people do nowadays. But it's very interesting. I don't watch a whole lot of. There was a couple channels I used to follow for a while, then I finally just I've had enough with this game. I really don't care anymore. So, but sad to see him go. Hear about him going. I mean, obviously I didn't know him, never met him, but I just over this. Well, I had an uncle die a few weeks ago, actually. So in the course of about 14 months, I lost my oldest uncle to one form of cancer, and my youngest uncle to another form of cancer. Now, my dad's older brother had stuff several years ago. It went away, and then it kind of like TotalBiscuits, it came back. And then my mom's younger brother fell last October, broke. And basically, he had cancer everywhere and didn't know it, and so his bones were brittle and other things. And just the more they explored, the worse it got. And then, I guess about 2 months ago, it was kind of obvious. Yeah, this isn't going to go well. So, yeah, it's a horrible disease. I've had classmates of mine from Patch die several years ago of it. grandmother way back in the in the late 70s. So it does seem to, sometimes it goes away and it never comes back, and other times it just takes people in no time whatsoever. So, but apparently he was in North Carolina, I think, of what I was reading. Charlotte, North Carolina. So I don't know if he moved here to the States, or if he was visiting or seeking other kind of treatment. He was a British citizen. And it's not odd for people in those countries with socialized medicine, when they get serious diseases, to seek help in the States, because they can get stuff as opposed to be on a waiting list. So, but apparently it was in 2014 is when his adventure started with this stuff. So, but he also covered. Apparently, he did some things with. He did some things at BlizzCon because it became quite popular in. He did some other stuff with StarCraft 2. I thought somewhere I read he did some voice work or something for some of the games. He had a very good voice. I mean, suppose the nasally, whiny voice I've got, he had a nice baritone voice and great voice for radio.
This great.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
So, I would not be surprised if, because it says on his Wikipedia page, he was known for his role in professional casting for games such as StarCraft 2 and PlanetSide 2, as well as, I don't know exactly what that means, but anyway, so he will be missed definitely, and Godspeed.
Indeed.
So we'll move along to various topics. Kind of getting back a little bit to the my time last night with WCBS. Some of the things that Jeff talked about. I was on with them. What were we doing? We were doing something I did with them not too long ago. Oh no.
I don't know. That would be be you to remember that.
I know.
At that point.
Well, see, last week we did the Patreon hangout. This past week we did the Patreon hangout. That was very interesting, and I'm telling you, did you listen to that at all?
Yes, I was listening to that. God, how many of you were on it at the same time?
Too many. It was like 12 or something at one point.
Yeah, it was like a number. Was that? I remember. I think people were wanting Cecil to join that too.
Yeah, he
on
did.
The chat.
Yeah. He did join. It was after I got out of that, because I listened to the rest of it the next morning. And then Rodrigo, you and Rodrigo sound so much alike, it's scary. Even Kendo made it say, man, I feel like I'm talking to LMP. And he's from Puerto Rico. He actually lives in Puerto Rico. Although Cecil didn't believe, he had such a clear connection, Cecil didn't believe that he was actually in Puerto Rico. It's like, no, you're in New York. But, we had a guy from Australia, too. So, it was pretty
that I remember.
Clear. David Applegate. And so basically that was a Patreon hangout with people. They're going to do them once a month. We'll see when I do it. But I don't remember. It was in one of these things that we did, and Jeff mentioned it last night when we were doing stuff, is they're going to go to Star Wars Expo next year when it's in Chicago. And they're dragging me along. Jeff said something like, Lape, you're coming with us, and Nick said, bring your camera, man, we got lots to do. So it doesn't sound like it's going to be a vacation, but it almost sounds like they're going to troll it. What I can't figure out yet is if they're going to go and just try and talk to people, or if they're going to set up a booth right across the hall from wherever they're doing stuff and troll them. So it's because Jeff first talked about it on one of the high councils, and Jeremy said that his wife does something in the industry for that stuff, and can get pretty good rates on hotels and things. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And it's it'll be. I think it'll be a fun time. I don't really want to get kicked out of something, but if it happens, it happens. And I did pimp my channel a little bit more last night. They kind of
did on the Facebook too.
I did on Facebook. Well, near the end, I started getting all these beer questions. Well, actually, before Kendo left, there were beer questions. And then we were doing Ghostbusters, and then people were asking me about mead and all this other stuff. And by then, I was so tired, I could barely keep my eyes open. And that's why I was like, okay, since people can't seem to find my channel easily, I'm like, just search for my name. Yeah, really.
Is it that hard?
I put a link in Facebook saying, okay, and, it's send me a message, or leave a comment on one of my videos or whatever. And that's, I've got people sending me beers. Nick said he's going to bring me more beer. He's going to come up here in August for something. And then, and I've got a couple other people that asked me, and I'm trying to get, this one guy lives in Louisiana, but there's a guy that's local. I'm trying to get a beer review with him. I'd like to do it live together, but if I have to do something like probably won't do it by Skype. What we'll probably do is similar, but we'll do our video things on, and I've seen some other beer reviewers do this live on YouTube, so we'll do it that way. Because I can go live on my channel, I just never really done it. I helped my son set it up for when they went live, but I haven't really done it for myself.
That'd be interesting. You got to do like a live stream on nothing but beer reviews.
Right. Yeah, and it have to be the same beer. There's actually a couple of guys that are doing stuff. They've got smaller channels than mine, believe it or not, and they're local, and they do some things. They haven't invited me to any of them yet, but they do some live chats, and when I join, they usually say something. They know who I am, so I'm semi-infamous, I guess, in a small crowd. Yeah, so well, part of it is they like the insight. They pick up some of the flavors and things, and then I pick up other stuff, and that discussion's nice. You can go back and forth. And as I did a thing at Mad Tree a few weeks ago, I guess about a month ago, I did a clinic. I can tell when something's wrong with the beer, but what I'm not good at is knowing exactly what it is. There's about 4 different things that can easily happen to beer that are similar, and I taste the difference. All 4, I can identify there are 4 different things, but I can't keep straight what is what. I just know something went wrong, and it's usually having something to do with the cleanliness of the vessels and some other things. Maybe yeast was slow to get in there, and there was a slight infection and some other stuff. It's still drinkable. It's just slightly off flavors.
Mm-hmm.
So
never knew there was so much to beer until I actually started watching your channel.
Yeah, well, beer is a living organism. This is something that people don't. It's a complete ecosystem. You have sugars, you have yeast is a living creature, and you have the water, and of course, once the yeast they produce the alcohol, and they also produce the CO2 when you do natural carbonation. So because of that, it can be infected. Wine can get infected too. It's not just beer. Usually wine, when it gets infected, it turns to vinegar. Beer does a whole mess of different things. When we did this thing, we had 10 samples of stuff that all had something wrong, and then that gave you the baseline. And then one of the things we did afterwards is we mixed several of them, and then you would get completely different flavors. So sometimes 2 or 3 of these things will happen at the same time, and that was pretty interesting. So and then some of the beers let's just chat beer for a while. I'm trying to get somebody else to join us, but so far I haven't stated anything. Hold on a second. Yeah, Cecil.
Imagine if we get him on this channel, our views will go up by like 10.
Yeah, it's trying to type around my microphone. I find that when I hold it close, it's much better. I'm much louder. It's very strange because right now I'm watching my levels, and I'm in the upper green, and sometimes I peek into the red. And when I listen to it in Final Cut, I'm loud enough. But after I've rendered it, sometimes you can't even hear me. It's very bizarre. And somewhere around like episode 2 or 3 or 4, I figured out how to split my audio from you guys, and I could boost. And I did that several times. And then somewhere along the line, I don't know if there was an update to the software or what, but I haven't been able to figure it out since then. On the software, I can put everybody's that joins the Skype channel in separate channels, but then I got to align them all, and that's just a pain in the butt. So, but it was in Final Cut. It wasn't, I don't remember. But I think part of that was when we were doing the video, and so I would take the video out, and I was in one channel, you guys were in another, and then I would put them together as mono, or simulated stereo, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So it would double it into both. And that may have been what I was doing, but those files were so huge that was just a pain, that was beyond a pain. Especially when we get going and we talk for like 2.5 hours. It'd take like half an hour just to export the files out of the recording device software. So anyway, hold on a second.
Are we getting someone on the show?
Maybe. I had to take a drink of water. I was losing my voice. So, but so as the discussion came out, we talked about the fan cast. I was even when I was on the chat with the Patreon, I was actually listening. Well, not listening, but watching the chat as the fan cast. So I was doing that in Safari. That's what I utilized because I had to use Chrome, and Chrome there's another. I don't have a YouTube channel, but I have another Gmail account that I use from time to time, and I had that on Chrome, so I had to log out of that and then log in as me, because apparently you have to use Chrome, at least on a Mac. Firefox doesn't work with the Hangouts. So, it was very interesting. There were some people were asking questions, and even after I posted on the Facebook page, we had somebody asked about mead. I gave them kind of a rundown. I've never made it, but there are definitely some things, and some people will steep mead, some people don't. Some people, it depends on if the honey's homogenized or not. I think is part of it. You can steep it and then chill it and then get the yeast going. It's just you got to treat it like a living organism. There's no such thing as nothing can be too clean, but you can use the wrong stuff to clean, and you'll get residual flavors and off flavors and stuff like that. So, got to be careful that way. But they've got a lot of good cleaners and sanitizers now that leave no residue, no off flavors, and I clean everything. Basically, what I do, I'm gonna give you the 2-minute rundown of when I do brew. I use Clorox bleach and water, unscented. I've used off-brand bleaches, but they leave too much salt residue, and that's what I clean the counter space. So I fill up both of the sinks. I wipe down all the counter space, the stove. Anything that might touch something that might touch the beer. So that, in other words, none of these surfaces should ever have direct contact with the beer, especially anything I'm going to keep unless I splash or something, which I'm obviously not putting back in. But the hoses and stuff like that, even on the outside, will touch things, and so there may be some indirect contact. And I sweep out the kitchen usually. I've had to put the baby gates up sometimes to keep the dogs out, and then of course everything else gets sanitized. I have a one-step cleaner, and I have some other sanitizer that I use. I will heat up. I usually clean and rinse and heat up my grain fodder that I have. I run hot water through everything, so I don't. This is long before I start. I mean, some of the stuff people, you don't have to do that, or it'll boil out. No, I don't take any chances. And people have told me things like that, and I've had their beer, and mine's better, and sometimes significantly better. I'm like, yeah, you do your methods, I'll do my methods. And this is why it takes all day, because it's not odd for me to spend 2 hours cleaning the kitchen before I even start brewing. And then in between things, so like when I'm doing the mashing, you're always cleaning something else, the stuff that I got coming up, or what you're going to be, what you just used. Then when I still waiting for stuff to boil, because that's what a lot of brewing is waiting for things to happen. Well, when you're waiting for it to boil, or you got to say boil for an hour, or however long your boil time is, That's when you're doing other stuff. You're cleaning I'll be cleaning the fermenter. I'll be cleaning the rinsing out the I have a reverse flow chiller, getting it set up. Maybe cleaning up the stove if I had some spillage or something. And then when all that's done, and it's chilling down, then I get the fermenter ready, and then when it's draining into the fermenter, and then obviously you have all that stuff to clean when you're done. So sometimes I'm pumping that in, I'm draining my grains, I'm throwing them away. It's a lot of work. When I'm done, I usually start about 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm done about 8 it's almost like 12 hours for me, and I am exhausted when I'm done. So, but yeah, it was good. It was good discussions, and I know I kind of fading out. I am kind of tired, but and I'll stop chatting here. But Star Wars. What was nice about seeing Star Wars, I had never seen that special edition. The versions I own are the ones that were released on VHS in the mid '90s. They're in THX. They cleaned up some of the effects, but that's it. There was none of that extra stuff. I had seen some of those scenes on the internet years ago. And when they re-released Star Wars back before the prequels came out, the whole trilogy, Empire Strikes Back was the only one I went to see. So the special editions that had been out, Empire, there was only slight changes. Cloud City probably had the most changes, with the windows actually being windows. But I saw part of what they added, and I was like, yeah, I'm not interested. So, especially in Jedi, I think maybe it was another edition where they replaced the singer, and they had that stupid, annoying CGI creature running around, and it's like it's a dark overlord's den. There's not supposed to be anything funny about it. Shouldn't be any comic relief like that. That's just inappropriate. So, and then we watched Ghostbusters, which like I said, I don't remember how long it's been since I've seen it. Maybe 20 years. I don't know. But I still remembered a lot of it. I was a little off on the dialogue, but it was fun. So anyway,
no,
I digress.
It's all good. It would have been cool for me to have watched some Star Wars. I haven't. I think the last time I was watching one of the any of the movies from the original prequels, I think TNT was showing A New Hope one time, and I managed to catch probably like the first hour before something called my attention that day. It was just cool watching the movie from start to finish. Luke looking out into the sunset. Later on, his aunt and uncle dying. Ben Kenobi taking him on. These are not droids you're looking for, and all that other good jazz. It was pretty cool. Like, I haven't seen that movie, I would say, in its entirety since I was a kid, and that was, just to say, maybe 20 years ago, at least 20 years ago. Maybe it's the first time I've seen that movie, and possibly the last. From there, I have not watched any of the original trilogy movies. And as much as I would like to buy the movies on DVD just so I can watch them whenever I feel like it, from what I understand, the movie versions that are the ones that are readily accessible are the ones with all these like added features. These I think like they changed the whole Rito shooting. Was it Han shooting first or whatever? Or the controversy.
Right.
Yeah, that stuff. And I was told, like, no, this isn't the original. These aren't, the original movies or polished versions of the original. This is just like that stuff that Lucas put out and changed. Like making Anakin with Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker at the end of 3 of Return of the Jedi, that type of stuff. So I've refrained from buying them as a result. And thus, I haven't been able to watch any of them. Speaking of Ghostbusters, though, now that you mentioned it, what would you say is how do you feel about the Ghostbusters? Are you a big fan of it, of the movie, of the series, whatever?
Oh, the originals?
Yeah, you know.
I liked it. I guess you could say I was a fan. I wasn't, I didn't go overboard. I was, when was that, 85, I think.
I believe, yeah.
So when that movie
I was
came
in
out,
England.
right, I was 17. So then they turned it into a cartoon later. I think that came after the second Ghostbusters movie, though. So Ghostbusters 2 came out. I was in college. So I knew there was a cartoon. I know there was also the video game and stuff like that. Heck, I think there was even an Atari 2600 video game. But I liked them. I liked the movie, and the second one, I didn't think it was. I liked it, but it wasn't as good. I don't understand how. Is it Dana Barrett or Dana, whatever her character, Sigourney Weaver's character, goes from being a musician to an art restorer? That was kind of weird. I know Kendo likes to say he's Vigo.
It's in one of two camps. Either people love it or people hate it, but it's not a terrible movie. I think the beginning is one of the more hilarious parts of the movie, where you think it's the Ghostbusters are on another mission, and it turns out they're doing kids' parties now because they just fallen out.
Yeah.
And,
and to me, that we even talked about that last night. That was, to me, very realistic, because that's the kind of crap that would happen in the real world, right? You had these guys save the town, and then everybody's upset and starts suing.
Exactly. So they start doing kids' parties, and I remember watching it with my nephew on TV, and that very same scene, and when they're like, and who are you going to call? And the kids shout, He-Man. Right. I was like, at that moment, I don't know what, I felt like I was triggered by that moment, and immediately I was like, all of you should have been aborted long time ago. And my nephew is just listening to me, like, with the look on my face and that response, like, so dead in my voice, and he's just dying of laughter, because I'm just looking at these kids like, just pull that stunt with me. I would be the one making these kids into ghosts, and then I'll be charging the parents afterwards to get them out of the house, type of mentality. But that's one of the better. I definitely like that scene. It's just so, like, out there. The courtroom scene is also another one. I forgot what was the name of the ghosts. See, this is what I say about Ghostbusters 2. It's one of those movies you love or hate, but it just doesn't stand out as much as the first.
Right. Yeah.
And
I don't remember either. The brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was supposed to be a shot at the Menendez brothers or something like that.
Maybe.
If they were, I'm not sure. Sorry if you hear a loud car in the background. This is New York City after all. But that was a pretty cool scene as well. Lewis is all, like, wild by everything that just happened. The judge is like, I'll drop all the charges if you promise to get rid of them for me. And they were like, are you sure? Like, they really were thinking about leaving that judge with those ghosts. And it was just a more, like that side of them, like, you know what? This guy was giving us shit. Let's give him shit. So it's one of those movies where I think they were just being themselves. Like, they were just trying to be, who they were, like, who the characters was. And they were just letting the characters cut loose, just be themselves, be real in that situation. And, the ending could be a bit cheesy, especially with the moving Statue of Liberty, but
right,
it's still a movie. I still think it warrants another view. It has a lot of rewatchability. Like I said, doesn't stand out as much.
Yeah, well, I think there was resistance to do a second one. I think Bill Murray didn't want to do a second one. I remember Letterman asking him pretty early on, is there going to be Ghostbusters 2? And Bill just kind of wouldn't answer the question. So I think part of it was to find a script that they all could agree with. I mean, you're dealing with some pretty big egos there, too, with all of the actors. Except maybe Ernie Hudson. Because they were all popular. You had Stripes was another big hit with, Bill Murray and what's his name? Harold Ramis. Spies Like Us, you had Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd. You had, several other movies in the 80s that were it was part of the Saturday Night Live contingent as well as Second City. So and that was kind of they were, well, heck, I think Harold Ramis was he 30 when they did Stripes? Maybe a little bit older. He's always much older than I think he is. And until he got old, his hair was dark and thick, and he looked a lot younger.
I mean, that was a sad day when he passed away because, as a kid, I really loved the Ghostbusters. It was one of those. It was like Batman. When you watch it the first time you're a kid, you're like cheering the hero on. Especially like with Batman, you're cheering him as he's punching the bad guys, arresting them, and leaving them for the cops or bringing them to justice. The Ghostbusters were the same thing. They were going up against entities that, especially as children, you fear them because you don't know better, or this is the ghost stories your parents told you to keep you in line, that about the boogeyman and everything. So you would cheer the Ghostbusters on. Now they were the ones taking on the scary monsters in the closet or underneath the bed type of scenario. So when I watched 2, I honestly, for the longest, when I was a kid, I thought like a lot of movies that had sequels were like one big movie. I didn't know like Ghostbusters 1 and 2 were 2 separate movies until like I was a teenager. I was like, there's a Ghostbusters 2? How come I never seen this movie before? And then I found out, it's Ghostbusters. That was Ghostbusters 1 and this was Ghostbusters 2.
Right.
So when I heard for the longest that they were supposed to make it a 3 and it never came out, I was in one of those camps of like, we want a 3, and eventually they made the video game that came out on the PS3, the Xbox, the Wii. And they essentially called that the 3rd movie. And the plot of it's pretty straightforward to the point, and it's pretty enjoyable. It's a fun game. It's a good movie license. I finally was able to find a copy of it. I really wish I had bought it when it first came out. I don't know why I didn't. I feel like an idiot for not doing so. But it was a fun game. It was a fun playthrough. I'll probably play it again just to have a replay ability. Or you could just watch the cutscenes on YouTube. It's basically a whole movie. And it stays, true to the original. So when Ramis, when things were, because I think from what I understand, he was doing pretty. I think he was sick too for a long time, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I was like, damn, like what is going to happen with him? Is there going to be another Ghostbusters? When he finally died of it, I remember telling my then coworker, I was working a call center at the time, like, oh, you heard about Harold Ramis? And I believe, did him and Spock go in the same year?
I thought Harold Ramis...
Was it the year after? I'm trying to remember.
I thought Harold Ramis was several years before Leonard Nimoy.
Probably.
Well, 2014 was Harold.
Okay.
February 24th. I thought Leonard Nimoy just died last year.
No, Nimoy's been dead a few years now.
February 27th, 2015. So basically a year apart.
Yeah, a year apart. Okay, so within the time of a year, basically. Not within the same year, but close to the time frame. Both of them passed away. Wow, that's really putting things into perspective when you consider mortality and the heroes that we grew up watching.
And Harold Ramis is my dad's age. My dad was born the 25th of November 1944, and he was the 21st of November 1944. So, wow.
Yeah, I mean, we all grow old at one day, and we'll all die of illness, old age, or something. But when that time comes, it's like the question. I believe we asked this question before. Do you think, how do you think you'll feel when this person dies or this person dies? I know I've asked that question to friends of mine when we watch wrestling, like, hey, like a lot of them came and went, but how do you think we'll react when we hear the inevitable, oh, Ric Flair's passed away or Hulk Hogan's passed away? I know I was really sad when Macho Man passed away and Warrior passed away. Those hit me really hard.
Randy Savage.
Randy Savage, man, that was a sad one too. Died asleep in the wheel, from what I remember hearing.
But the original Ghostbusters was 1984. So
84. You were off that year.
No,
nothing too serious.
But I watched. Well, part of it is I watched this when I was in Germany. This was one of the. This is also what makes it hard to. When Jeff asked me stuff with Star Wars, with my mom not letting us see it in '77, but we got the toys, and I was very familiar with the movie. I had, when in sixth grade, our library had this 4 LP set of it was basically the soundtrack, the entire movie, just the audio, and with the sound and the sound effects and the music and everything. I had listened to the radio drama before I ever saw the movie, so I was very familiar with that. But seeing it at in the military, basically a movie will run in theaters for some amount of time before we would get them on a military base. And then it would be several more months, usually, unless it was a horrible movie, before you saw it overseas. There were a few exceptions to that, and one of them was Back to the Future in 1985. That didn't take too long to get overseas. But the thing is, it would play in your local theater for like 3 days, and then it's on to the next theater, So something like Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, something like that, it's going to play that for a weekend. It's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it'll be gone. And it ain't ever coming back. So, but I remember standing in line. We went to, it would be in a late afternoon showing. It wasn't quite the evening showing. So so they usually had a matinee around 1. Now, granted, this is me trying to remember back almost 40 years here. So I'm guessing it was like a 6 o'clock showing. My brother and I were in line at 3 o'clock, and we were the 8th or 9th person line. We were not first. So, to see Empire. And then my dad showed up and we brought our own, snacks and crap. So my dad and my mom showed up and got tickets and got in, and the rest is history. So, but that does throw in this, and I do not believe. I know 1981 is when Star Wars was re-released as A New Hope, but I do not believe it was many, many months later. But people we knew who saw Empire Strikes Back on what they call on the economy, so not on base, had seen it, but it wasn't like they saw it months and months and months and months before we did. So it must have been only a couple months at most after release. Nowadays these movies are in theaters 3 or 4 weeks, unless they're really good, then they're 6 or 8. But man, back then, Star Wars ran for a long time, and so did Empire. But and then Return of the Jedi, my brother was at church camp, and we went. My mom and my dad and I went to see it. And then I don't think he saw it until it came back in Germany. So that would have been in June that we saw Return of the Jedi, early June. It was after school was out. So maybe mid-June. And then we moved to Germany in early August. And I think maybe by September it came. So I don't know. You have to ask him when he saw it, because I'm pretty sure he saw it at Patch Barracks in Germany. So sometimes it's kind of hard to remember exactly what is what. So,
I mean, that happens, I can't say me that I've been around for that long. I mean, compared to you, I'm pretty sure you've been around a lot longer than any of us. It's an understatement of the year, but we forget things, or we don't remember it as well as we do sometimes. Sometimes we're just mistaken. And, it's better than saying, oh, God, I could have sworn it was like this. Whoa, it's the Mandela effect. It's like the biggest piece of bullshittery out there. People just don't need to remember things better.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, and I never, that's something when we've talked about it before, I didn't think Mandela was dead. He got elected president and did some other things. And so when people I start hearing about the Mandela effect, it's like, I don't think so.
I think they were confusing him for Morgan Freeman, and they were confusing Morgan Freeman for, like, I don't know, somebody else. I don't know, maybe OJ or something.
I don't know. Well, that's another topic right there. I mean, Morgan Freeman got accused of inappropriate behavior this past week. Visa canceled a bunch of stuff. Again, it's like there's no it's innocent until proven, or guilty until proven innocent.
Innocent.
You know,
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to. I'm not going to sit here and even pretend to excuse what Harvey Weinstein did, or and several of these others that actually have serious accusations. But I read an article about the stuff, and it was like, he looked at somebody, he may have made an offhand comment. I'm like, are you kidding me? Is this where we've gotten to now? In the 90s, Bill Clinton had women accuse him of rape. I mean, assault. Juanita Broderick still brings it up. Paula Jones had pictures of her with a bloody lip and some other things. And there were some. He was never really arrested. I mean, he was president, so they weren't going to do anything about it. But the media just went out of their way to excuse his horrible behavior, possible criminal. And now it's to the point where, just an accusation of leering, really, is enough for people to lose their livelihood. And that is just mind-boggling to me.
Well, I remember seeing something that you posted on Facebook a while back, something about how much further are we going with this whole was it reprogramming men to no longer be men, right, especially young men.
Right. Yeah.
And it goes back to something that I started noticing a lot more growing up, how when I was younger, you would see men, not afraid to be men with women. Could they be creeps sometimes and cross the line? Absolutely. There's, not every woman is the same. Not every woman wants to be talked a certain way and something like that. That's fine. I've had women make accusations of me in the past as well, and I never heard about it until someone told me, which was the most fucked up thing out there. Luckily, nothing ever came of it, mostly because they shot themselves in the foot. You can't keep a story straight. But if anything, I should be thankful that this happened back then and not now, because now it's like you can't even question the narrative, and doing so puts you in a camp that makes you a sexist, a misogynist, or whatever. But take your pick.
Yeah.
But talking about the Bill Clinton thing, one of the things that definitely got brought up during the Trump campaign was how people were trying to make Trump to seem some kind of rapist. I think at one point they were trying to say he was a pedophile because he was made comments about I think Paris Hilton when she was younger, and something about some kid. Like, this came out about him. Now the thing with him and the hooker, and it was like consensual sex, and she's trying to twist the narrative like it wasn't consensual and everything. But one of the things that came up during that era was people that are like, why are we picking apart Trump for all these accusations when, Hillary Clinton, the champion of women, the listen and believe, I'm with her and everything, she was the one, protecting her husband from all these accusations, going as far as intimidating women and going as far as, well, we have such a thing as a Clinton body count. So we'll leave that as a separate subject in its own. We don't want to bring any more unwanted attention to us. Yes, I'm just a lonely Mexican. I know nothing. Guys, please don't come after me. But I remember listening to, I think there was a channel I was listening to at the time, I think called Black Pigeon Speaks. And even he made a remark in one of his videos how Hillary Clinton would essentially tarnish his legacy. Bill Clinton turned out as this cool, hip, president that appealed to a younger audience, and now a lot of that younger audience is older now. They're seeing these things. They're learning these things about him. They're learning all the names, like the names of the ladies you just mentioned. And, even Trump went ahead and trolled him. I forgot who he was. I think it was Jennifer Flowers he invited to one of the debates.
I thought he had all four of them there.
All four, right?
I thought there was a debate where he had Jennifer Flowers, Juanita Broderick, Paula Jones.
Paula Jones, the other one, yeah.
And right in the front row. And to me, I thought it was, it's politics and everything's a little bit dirty, but to me it was like a fair dirty pool. It's like, this is a reminder of the legacy here, and now we have, maybe for all I know, Morgan Freeman is a dirty old man scumbag, right? And he grabs women and he pinches them. I don't know, but all we have are these allegations that are really not that bad, and people wonder why we got a thing with MGTOW and all this other stuff, and why many young men are afraid to even ask or look at women anymore. We do have it's toxic feminine, well, it's the feminazis.
Thank you.
It's the
I was
toxic
hoping
feminist.
somebody would say that term.
Yeah,
thank you.
It's like, I remember the days of guys would be whistling, catcalling. I mean, a little bit in the 70s, and there was a lot of sexist attitudes. And we tried to curtail it some, it started to kind of go away. But in the early 80s, there was a singer, I forget her name, maybe late 80s. She had a song about where have all the cowboys gone? And where these guys were, it was like the beginning of it. These guys were getting married, so this would have been guys in their late 20s, early 30s, get married. And they don't really do anything with their families, right? They go to work. They're down at the local bar with their buddies. They don't really do anything. And that's kind of the lament of the song. It's not this, I don't have this tough guy who goes and works hard for work and he does things around the house. And it was like the beginning of the lament that we're starting to feminize men too much. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And now it's, you don't want to look at a woman. There's a YouTube video, it actually came out a couple of years ago, I think, where they kind of spoof some of this. I forget the guy's name. He's Australian, but he's like, I don't know, maybe Indian descent or something. But it's great commentary on the social justice warrior BS. And if you looked at me like me more than 3 seconds, it's considered sexual harassment. It's just, it's funny and it's very sad because it's very, very true. This is, and we're already seeing a lot of this stuff. Where you have Sweden, you have these feminists running around Sweden, protesting the patriarchy protesting all the statues, and they went around like they were riding horses because all these guys were on horses, and this was stuff that all happened in the 19th century. And while inviting in the most misogynistic, philosophy ever seen on the earth in their import with Islam, and it's like, you guys, you have a common enemy, and that's the West. They both want to destroy the West, but you have on one side you have an enemy, I don't know, I don't want to say enemy, but you have a force, if you will, that's been at this since 400, 500 AD, and they know what they're doing. And on the other side, you have the useful idiot force and the feminists trying to destroy Western men and Western culture and Western civilization because they see it as toxic masculinity. And like, well, if you succeed in your alliedship here, you're going to be next to go.
Yeah, and it's really sad because what has happened exactly to men in this modern age? I'm not trying to get all MGTOW because I think there's a lot of flaws and a lot of bad representation there too. So it's kind of like they're hurting their own movement, but they're doing it in a different way.
Right.
But I'm gonna let that speak for itself.
Well, just look at it in entertainment. I mean, look at the Cosby Show in the 80s. Okay, I know it's probably before your time, but in the early 80s, that show comes out. It's kind of like a Father Knows Best, but a more modern take. It's a lot of it's based on some of the comedy routines he did previous to that, and it was a pretty good show. I mean, I stopped watching it before it got its long run done. But the kids would try to get away with stuff, and Bill Cosby would say, that's the dumbest thing. If your head been with you all day, son, things like that. Kind of the way a real dad would talk, right? And then in the 90s, we get another Cosby Show, and I remember watching it one time because I'll check it out again. Because Felicia Rashad was playing his wife. I think he had a different name. But the men in granted, the men in the show sometimes did dumb things in the original one. That's true. Mm-hmm. But in the newer Cosby Show, so this is 20 years ago, the men were complete and utter buffoons. And you started to have in popular entertainment more and more where either the woman was single, dad ran off with some skirt, or was a dirtbag, or was a good for nothing. And then men started, we started seeing it with Everybody Loves Raymond. These were popular shows. And I'm like, these guys are cucks. and we're supposed to be entertained by this, and it just gets worse. And now we have Kylo Ren is the best character in the new Star Wars stuff, and he's horrible.
God, yes. I mean, this is something that I was discussing a little bit with. I never touched upon it any further. Maybe I'll touch upon it now a little bit more. When the movie Death Wish came out earlier this year, and why I loved it, because it was a nice throwback to those eras. Like if you want to get all like nostalgic about it, it reminds me of watching westerns as a kid, cowboys. You know, the bad guys would pillage, they would rape, they would kill, and you know it was up to the sheriff or the lone not the Lone Ranger as in the actual Lone Ranger, but that lone individual, that lone cowboy to go after them. What was it? What was the John Wayne one called? Damn it! The John Wayne one, the one with the girl, and they go after the girl's father's killer.
Oh, I'm not sure.
True Grit.
I was thinking True Grit, but I never saw it, so I know they remade it too.
Yeah, they remade it. I don't remember watching it. If I don't remember watching it, I did watch the one with John Wayne as a kid, and I did see it again. I think earlier this year or sometime late last year with my mother. You know, she was really big into those movies. Like she watched, and let's use her as an example. Yes, she'll occasionally watch the romance movies or anything, but even then, the guy in those movies, they always had a bit of a charm or a tough guy. They rarely were they ever cucks. Yeah, they probably weren't great. Maybe they cucked out a little bit, but they weren't like the level of cucks. They weren't hipsters. And especially in a lot of those older movies, these guys were men. They weren't afraid to still be men. Did they admit fault? Were they wrong at times? Of course, that happens. She can't watch a lot of these movies nowadays because like none of the men feel like men. She even says that even the women don't even feel like women. They're no longer ladylike. They're no longer feminine. They try too hard to be men when they're not. Sometimes they come off as total bitches and dykes, and she even says it. Like she'll say it like that. Like they come off as something that they know they're not. And the men too, they don't act like men. Why would you cheer someone on who should be a guy, who should be a man, who should put his foot down and stand up to somebody? Instead, he looks like this dude, like some guy that hasn't even hit puberty yet sometimes. And we're supposed to cheer them. Now the younger generations, they'll cheer it. Older generations are looking at me like, "Who the fuck is this guy? Why should I cheer him?" You know, and if you ever wonder, and you know why a lot of the older crowd doesn't like a lot of the new stuff or a lot of remakes and like, let's just look at Star Wars. Harrison Ford was a man. He was an alpha male. Did he maybe do things that crossed the line a bit? Yeah. What was he, a scoundrel, I believe? Yes, he was like that. But he changed for the better, and in the end, he got the girl for it. You know, he got his reward. You know, all his good deeds, all his sacrificing and everything. In the end, being a better person, and you undo that in one movie, and you're trying to pass the reins off to Kylo Ren, who could, for all intents and purposes, be a badass, but from what everybody tells me, he isn't, which is the biggest fault of that movie. You want to have a strong male. Always, so at least you have a demographic that can look towards him. You don't have a strong male in that movie, from what it seems, and then you emasculated Luke. You literally had him drink cum. Like let's not sugarcoat it. I've seen that scene. That is a horrible scene to put in any movie. And the fact, and I don't blame Mark Hamill to be pissed off at that. But, and I know I'm digressing here, going off, but the point I was trying to make is like why I like Death Wish so much. The one with Bruce Willis. Was it because it was he starts out a bit as a cuck, you know, he was a pacifist, but then one day his wife is killed and his daughter is nearly murdered, you know, goes through a traumatic experience, and he doesn't know, and he doesn't know how to handle it. He finds a gun one day and he decides, I'm going out for blood. I'm going for some vigilante justice. And we can sit here and debate whether what he did was right or wrong in the end, but what we can possibly agree on is that he felt wronged. The audience know he was wronged, and him picking up the gun and going after the bad guys or shooting a few bad guys along the way. Especially there's a scene where he talks to his little black kid, and the kid doesn't want to tell him like at first what happened, Eventually, he starts leveling the kid. He's like, "Oh, you like LeBron? You know, I'm more of a Jordan guy myself." And then he learns of a guy named the Ice Cream Man, who's a thug, is a criminal. He's a drug pusher. You know, a very dangerous man. Look at that. He was willing to hurt a small child. You know, and what happens? He goes out and kills this guy. He shoots him in broad daylight, and it's like it's celebrated by the community. Even when you see little kids reenacting what they saw earlier, it was him putting the bad guy out of commission, and the people cheering him for him. It's going back to those westerns where you see the revenge, the lone cowboy. If you see Clint Eastwood take out these guys, these bad guys, and you can't help but cheer him. We're not here discussing whether murder should be legal, illegal, is it right, is it wrong in certain situations. If it's a right to kill a person, we're here simply as spectators watching. Okay, this guy's getting his just desserts, and this guy's going to give it to him. We don't have that anymore in movies. That's what's missing. We have guys who are physically fit, but mentally, I don't think they have that capacity to use their actual strengths the way they should be. I know I went on a fucking tangent here, but I think that's the biggest problem with entertainment right now. We're trying to dehumanize men. We're treating them as if they are the problem. They may be at times, but women are just as guilty of a lot of the things that go wrong. What was it recently? The thing with Smallville, the actress on it, 2 of them.
Oh yeah.
They were. Yeah. All the blame goes on the guy because he was the head, but they're trying to like absolve these 2 women, saying, you know, they were just brainwashed into it. But had it been men, they would have been facing the same charges he was.
Oh yeah.
So it's double standards, and people want to talk and bitch and moan about equality. You know, we never said. You know, one thing that I talk a lot with friends is that, you know, for all the bitching and moaning that women like to do about equality, the one thing that they always like to complain about is when they take when they're getting punched. Now all of a sudden they're women, they're no longer men, but every other instance they're as equal to men in any other situation. You know, so which is it, ladies? Is it are you women, or are you men? You know, you can't have it both ways when it's convenient for you. You got to pick and choose one. Listen, there's nothing wrong with admitting maybe you're not as strong as a man, but Leia wasn't as strong as Han, and she had other ways that she, you know, wasn't equal to him. And there are other movies, for example, with Ghostbusters. Janine, she wasn't a Ghostbuster, not until we get to the cartoons, but she wasn't a Ghostbuster, but she had a certain wit and charms about her that kind of put her on a level of where she would go back and forth with Peter Venkman's character, especially the scene where she's arguing with him and she's like, I've quit better jobs than this. Yeah. The phone rings and he's like, Ghostbusters, what do you want?
Yeah, Ghostbusters, what do you want? Yeah, they were making fun. It's like, yeah, you're doing that voice pretty well, because I kept doing that voice. That's when they got really popular and they had a lot to do. Yeah. Well, even Rick Moranis' character, right? He puts the pack on in the second one and kind of becomes somewhat of a Ghostbuster, but you know, he does help. He doesn't save the day like he thinks he does. He doesn't do as much as he thinks he does, but it actually does help a little bit.
He does. He decides to be a man about it.
Yeah, and that's that's one of the things that you know, when you have a group of characters that each have strengths and each have weaknesses, and you know, Peter Venkman, for instance, they're always blaming him for stuff and making him go, no, not Peter Venkman, Ray. You know, Ray, when someone asks if you're a god, say yes. You know, he keeps kind of doing stupid things, but that's what makes the first movies good. We sort of get this in the prequels a little bit. The prequels, I mean, they have their own problems, but you know, Leia, Luke, and Han and Chewie all bring a certain skill. Even Obi-Wan, right? He, because of his abilities with the Force and his Jedi training, he can stealth around and not be seen and disable the tractor beam without it being known. Now, Vader kind of, I think, figures out his plan, and This is why they put a tracking ship, a tracking thing on the ship, and they sort of let him escape. I think if it's probably a toss between if we just destroy them all, the plans aren't going anywhere. But the idea of finding the rebel base and dealing with the rebels once and for all is kind of the overpowering piece there, and it's Vader's plan because Tarkin said this. This is a risky. What's he say? I'm taking an awful risk, Lord Vader. This had better work.
Of course. Let's look at Darth Vader. Let's just look at him for a second. The prequels. I know you have your opinions on the prequels and everything, but let's analyze the character that was Anakin Skywalker becoming Darth Vader. Anakin Skywalker, lived with his mom. And, I don't think they ever mentioned what happened to his dad. Did they in the prequels?
No, whose dad?
Anakin.
He doesn't have a father.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But did they ever mention what happened to him?
No, Shmi says there wasn't a father. She just got pregnant.
Holy shit! Is Anakin?
Yeah, don't you remember all the Jesus imagery in the episode 1? Yeah, he's the Force comes together to create him to be the chosen one.
Oh shit! I completely forgot about that. This is I only seen the prequels once each. They weren't that great, but they're not the worst thing out there. They're not on the top of my to watch list.
And I've only seen it. Well, I probably have seen them multiple times in parts because the kids, when they were little, watched them, and then when they got old enough to think a little bit, they're like, "Oh, these movies are horrible." And then I showed them the original series, and then they watched the crap out of them a lot. Yeah,
but wow, the whole Jesus. Well, that kind of puts things in perspective now. But anyways, but let's look at that. Like he's taken in by a father figure in Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon leaves that responsibility over to Obi-Wan upon his death. Obi-Wan takes him in, and that's his Padawan. He trains him. He tries to guide him through the ways of the Force. Realizes that later on that Anakin's soul's been corrupted, and he's veering towards the darker side more and more. And he spares him in the end. He does what he says. I love you like a brother, but he does what any good parent would do. He would try to help the child, even in a situation like that. Ultimately, leaving the child to reflect upon their mistakes and accept responsibility for their actions. So, him and that tied into the next movie, to me is an okay transition. It's something that I could live with if I were to watch it from 1 to 6. But look at Anakin. He starts out as this kid, annoying child. He's like, why are they bothering to deal with him and pick him up? He becomes this whiny teenager or something in the second movie. But towards the third movie, he starts becoming more badass. Granted, he's doing a lot of evil things, such as killing, younglings in the temple and other Jedi. He basically killed Mace Windu. Not completely, but basically. And essentially is the reason why Padme died also, though we're not even going to get into how force choking killed her and she decided to just want to stop living. But then we got the badass that was Darth Vader by the end of the movie, and he just became more of a badass ever since. Sometimes it's that, the badass isn't always born a badass. It builds to that. And it's like we're having the opposite effect with movies nowadays. Someone looks like a badass, and in a matter of seconds, they slowly or sharply are being, I don't know what would be the best word to describe it, but any level of badassery is quickly plummeting from that human being, like, instantly. And then typically nowadays it happens to be men. Like the male character, no, we can't make him too powerful, so we either have to kill him off or have some purple-haired giraffe tell him off in front of the rest of the squad, in front of the rest of the team. We got to deconstruct him. We have to break him down and remind him his place. despite the fact that he probably could have slapped Holo across the face, and that was her name, right? Holo General Studies, Gender Studies.
Vice Admiral General Studies.
Yeah.
That's what my son's and his friends call
her. Yeah, smart kids. Like, he could have easily slapped her, and that would have been the end of it. I mean, obviously, people are going to be saying, "Oh, how dare you say such a thing?" But I'm like, it's true. Like, what was there to stop him from doing that? It would have been a heel thing to do, but at the same time, a lot of us probably would have said, "You know what? She had it coming. You want to be all tough. You want to throw shit at this guy's face. You want to talk him down, make him feel less of a man. Well, you do realize he is a lot stronger than you, and you do realize that he could go up to your face and tell you anything, and if nobody was there to protect you, he would probably just smack you and be done with it and call it a day. But obviously, we can't have that, so the man just is emasculated. And there we go, that term I was looking for. He's emasculated in front of everybody, and it's like any semblance that this individual could have of being a badass is gone immediately. Like you would have to do something major to redeem that character. So it's kind of what we got going on a little bit. I don't know if you've noticed it, but I've seen to notice it a lot in entertainment. Like, you could have this character that looks promising, and in a matter of seconds, they're completely, like, whatever your expectations were of that character, it's completely gone out the roof. These people are not going to be the badasses you expected to be. They're not going to be the hero. If anything, they're going to be the opposite of whatever they were intended to be.
Yep. Yeah, it's well, this is part of what we even talked about. You know, we've been talking about it for quite a while. In many ways, this is why WCBS even exists and why the podcast got started. In many ways, we want to be entertained. We don't want to be preached to, and we sure as crap don't want to be called the problem. Right? We're not going to go to a movie where we're going to be berated for 2.5 hours. Especially men. It's not just white men, but men in general, and it's just. It's ridiculous. It's one thing to make a movie that's a commentary about society. You wouldn't consider that entertaining. But when you're doing something that's supposed to be entertaining and you're belittling your own audience, not trying to enlighten them, trying to steer them in a new direction, like a lot of the music of the '60s was about, you know, protesting the Vietnam War and protesting. Ironically, when they became the power, they became worse at totalitarianism than what they perceived there in the 50s and 60s as this, you know, this society that was suffocating. But it was a commentary, and it was trying to enlighten people and to get people to think differently and open their eyes and maybe see things in a different light. It wasn't, hey, you morons, you're idiots. Well, guess what? Eventually, they're going to stop buying your albums, and this is what I think. What we're seeing with the solo box office is that. Plus, it's not. I think it's all these things. I think there is Star Wars fatigue. It's only been 6 months or less. 6 months, I think. This is the 5th month. Yeah, it was September. It wasn't a year like other ones have been. They haven't been good. And there just wasn't that buzz for this one. This was not a movie people wanted to see. We didn't want to see Rogue One either. But what saved Rogue One was it was an okay movie. And then Solo is not an okay movie. Well,
I mean, Felicity Jones probably might have sold that movie a little more. Let's face it.
Yeah.
10 times better than Emilia Clarke in terms of looks and possibly acting.
Yeah.
But
and other assets. But
yeah.
The other thing still with Rogue One, unless that was a very subterfugal trailer, that first trailer, that's still the movie I want to see. The movie that was portraying to be. Because the other stuff, they're the ones that came later, this is a rebellion, isn't it? I rebel. That really is the movie we got. That line wasn't in it, but that's the style of movie we got. As opposed to because there they show them running around, they're running across the water they're trying to get back to do the communications. I think that would have been better than the garbage that we got. But yeah, it's just the seeping into entertainment everywhere, and you can only belittle and denigrate your audience for so long before they decide, hey, we're done, and we're moving on. And when you try to appease the SJW crowd, they don't buy the stuff. They don't buy your magazine. At least they don't buy it in any massive amounts. They don't go to the movies. They don't buy your comic books. They don't play your video games. And so when they're loud and boisterous on the internet, but they aren't a very big group, and they don't have much money because most of them live with their parents. So.
Oh, I mean, I think there's a lot of people living with their parents nowadays. Not for nothing, but let's just say I won't say the last 8 years, but somewhere in the last, not the current, but the last 2 terms, things went downhill economy-wise for a lot of people. So, it's not just SCWs living with their parents, just saying.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying these are like this guy in, was it Connecticut this past week who his parents sued to evict him? He's 31. He's been living with his parents for 8 years, been trying to get his life together. He apparently was married, had a kid, lost custody, was battling custody for 8 years. I'm like, look, I lived with my parents. I moved back in with, was married and had 2 kids. Was moving, from one city to another, trying to get rid of an old house. But after 2 years, it was like, look, we're just going to have to figure out where to live. Right? This house still isn't sold. Right? I still have the house married. We have a renter now. But in many ways, we ended up where we were because I couldn't afford 2 mortgages that were that tough, as opposed to one good one that we could have lived in a better neighborhood. And so I understand, I get it. But these are people who don't want to move out, right? They have no intention of moving out. They have too comfortable. They've gotten their participation trophies all their lives. They've never wanted to face adversity, and if they hit anything strong, mom or dad swoops in and fixes it. So, and fortunately, that's not a lot of people, but they are boisterous on the internet, and so they can sound like a lot of people, even though they aren't.
Not only are they the loudest people, they're also the ones that are in positions of power now.
Well, the people who coddle them are the ones in positions of power. They aren't. They don't have any real power. But people in authority either coddle them or are afraid of them.
Which they shouldn't. Always remind them, their place. They're peons for a reason. They're useful idiots for a reason. They're not supposed to have their hand up your ass. You're supposed to have your hand up their ass. That's just how it's supposed to be.
Let's put no one's hand up anywhere.
Well, we'll discuss the consensuality of that later. I'm pretty sure that is a made-up word I just made, but I don't care. Sue me. Actually, please don't. I can only pay you in pesos, and apparently that's not legal in this country.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get sued, ain't I?
I don't know. So anyway, sounds like we're starting to run out of steam. Let's get to the last little bit and call this a night. So you had some things that you wanted to talk about. 13 Reasons Why.
Oh yeah, it's an entertaining show. I've actually bitched about this. Eric started a channel and he was like, we were having a discussion about, he was like, LMP, why don't you start a channel? I was like, I've been thinking about it. I've been wanting to. I just never got around to it. So yesterday, kind of, I guess I did my first pilot, which is me running my mouth for 30 minutes. And after today's episode, I'm pretty sure it's possible for me to run it a good hour about the same subject matter and not get anywhere. But the whole thing I wanted to bring up about this show, 13 Reasons, and everything we've been discussing, is that I am going to officially call 13 Reasons Why the gayest show on Netflix right now, and let me explain why. The show, just to give you a brief synopsis, I don't know if you're familiar with it, it's about a girl named Hannah Baker commits suicide because a lot of things go wrong in a span of short amount of time, but the one thing that triggers it is that she gets raped. So she decides, I'm going to make a bunch of tapes, on cassette tapes nonetheless, put them out there with my grievances about these people. These are the reasons why I killed myself. Show gets a bit preachy at times. It is entertaining. I'll say it's a good watch. It's a good show in the sense that it's entertaining. It gets hooked. You want to get to the end. Now, whether or not it has great writing or everything, I'm not even going to speculate. There are hints of SJW-ism in it. Damn, I'm just making up words tonight. There's just some stuff they throw in there, some subtle, some outright. I'll give you an example of an outright in season 2. Just a legitimate question a character asks the protagonist asks. He's like, why would a girl, put herself in a situation, referring to like, why would they go to a house where, these kids would rape them and everything, and this guy would rape them in this clubhouse, and the girl there next to him is like, because boys make it far worse, men always make it worse, and something along those lines. I'm like, God damn it, they went there. But where this show really starts getting gay, and I mean gay as in like being blatant about it, is that one of the characters sneaks the main character a picture of the rapist violating some girl. The thing is that it's an ass shot of the rapist. We don't see the girl's face or anything at first. There's a second picture that reveals who she is. But it's like almost as if the way that picture was taken, it was focusing on the guy's ass a lot. And it wasn't like a one-time thing. It was like we saw it again, and then we saw the other picture, which still kind of shows a lot more of him, like naked from the waist down. He's still wearing a shirt. But it's like there's a focus on this guy's ass. I'm like, wait a second. Is this show trying to tell us something about this guy? I get it. He's supposed to be the bad guy. And I get it. We're seeing him in the process of raping someone. But why focus so much on their ass? I'm thinking at this point, maybe I'm reaching too far into it. And then this happens, where he reminisces about the girl that he had raped before she committed suicide, when they had dated sometime when they first met, and, how things were different. And reminiscing about it the night of the rape, he gets a boner. And how do we know he gets a boner? Because the camera literally does a close-up on his crotch, and you see the outline of that thing on his pant leg. I am like, and this is the moment that me, my brother, and my nephew were going like, whoa, like just real hard. Whoa, like pause. What is this show on? I don't know who's directing the show, but they have clearly a fetish for this dude. I don't want no part of it. And that is why I am saying officially, as of right now, you people can feel free to agree or disagree with me. I will label it as the gayest show on Netflix. Because clearly, somebody has an agenda of, we got to show this guy off to the world. Even though he is a rapist, we're going to show you his ass, and we're going to show you close-ups of his crotch. You know what we're not seeing? Yeah, and I get it. These are supposed to be portrayed as minor characters, even though they probably are not minor, the actors themselves. But I haven't yet to see even a grown pair of tits on that show. And I mean bare tits, not something behind the bra. So there you go. That's my arguments. I'm sticking to it.
Okay. Yeah, there were some other comments on the WCBS fan page about 13 Reasons. You have to check them out, see if you agree.
I'll get to it. I really want to have this discussion with people. I know I already brought up the discussion last night when I bitched about it for 30 minutes. But right. I think that's my main gripe with the show right now. I think that is just pushing it.
Okay. I got one other thing to cover, and that's just some of the numbers coming back from the solo box office. It's pretty bad. I'm not going to go through the exact figures, but the latest thing that they were saying, the projections now that I read this morning for the weekend. So this is going to include Monday, which is a holiday in the northern part of the country, because it's considered a 4-day week. Well, maybe it's not, 4-day weekend: Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. They're looking at 93 to 96 million in the U.S. So below 100 million. So this was supposed to, the original projections, if I remember correctly, were around 300 mil. Then it was 250, and then they talked about it on their broadcast on Thursday night that it was down to 150 or something like that. This is pretty. To me, it's pretty intense because it just shows. Now granted, this is only an anthology movie, and if episode 9, whether it's good or bad, brings in $1.5 billion, it doesn't matter. But I fully expect them to double down on their stupidity, and I expect episode 9 to be just a general audience rejection. It'll have probably a good opening, and it'll fall so fast. There's still a chance they could pull this trilogy out. They could write and head off in a more correct direction. But this is just, I'm sad to see it, but it does make me giggle.
No, I'm in the same camp. I never want to see anything fail unless I feel like it's no longer a shadow of its former self. Like, I feel the same way about shows like The Simpsons, for example. It's gone on too long. It even had shades of SJW, like liberal progressive type of ideals in it here and there every now and then, where you couldn't tell whether or not they were just trolling or they legitimately believed in this. Like, it needs to die. I don't want to see Star Wars die, especially in the middle of something that could potentially redeem itself in the end. Let's try to be like Lucas with Vader. He stuck it out until the end, until he finally redeemed his dad. Unfortunately, it cost him his dad's life, but still, redemption. So there's still that possibility that the series could be redeemed. Let's not steal that if there's a possibility. But at the same time, it's like, you did this to yourselves. Didn't they push back the original release date because I think of like Deadpool 2 and Avengers, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, I think they pushed Avengers up some so that it wouldn't conflict too much with this. Deadpool is a different studio. It's Marvel, but it's not Disney. So
yeah, it's Fox. But yeah. I remember, if I don't remember correctly, I think there was something about this. The release date for Solo was getting changed or something. Like I don't think it was Memorial Day was the original one, or maybe it wasn't. I don't remember too correctly. I'm not gonna blame Mandela on this either. But Disney did it to themselves. They just need to admit it. Okay, we fucked up. Admit it once, and maybe you might save face, and the people that don't want to deal with you maybe will soften up on you a little bit. Stop trying to double down. Stop trying to make excuses. Just accept the responsibility for your actions and be done with it. That's all you got to do.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, obviously, we're not going to get the next one till next year in Christmas, so now we have a year and a half to wait. But we'll see what happens, and I expect them to just double down. So any other things you want to talk about or bring up before we announce the BBC and get out of here?
No. What's the BBC?
All right, so the BBC this week. It's one I've had on the list, and I kept not using her for whatever reason. But Halle Berry is our BBC of the week. Congratulations!
Great.
And we'll find an image. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Solo Rotten Tomato score. In fact, I'm going to do the top critics instead of all the critics, so it's a 60% number, and put that as a background, something like that. So we'll see. All right. Well, just you and I. It's been you and I a couple times before. I mean, Kendo and I started by ourselves for a few times as well, and maybe next time Eric did get back to me a little bit. Dion Green was the one that actually responded I kind of put a general bulletin out to the regular crew to see if anybody wanted to join in. He asked when, and I responded, but he never replied back. And Jeff sent a picture of a drink. He's in some bar somewhere. I don't know where the heck he is. And Loudy is apparently he's moving in with his girlfriend, so that's why Jeff was helping him move last week, and he's buried in a pile of boxes. So, and Allison is her name. She lived up in Indianapolis, so she's moved down here. So
that's great for him. I hope we get to talk to him again on the show or whenever.
Oh yeah, definitely. I told him, I said, we normally do it on Friday nights, and you've got a standing invitation anytime you're available. Just let me know. So this has been episode 39 of the Fancast, where every once in a while we get together, because I shouldn't say every because I think we started on Saturday nights at one point. Then moved to Fridays, and so we can't say every Thursday night we get together to take a dump on the world of pop culture, but every when we can we get together to discuss World Class Bullshitters as well as other things going on. Sometimes we talk about the show. I mean, yes, this podcast did start out as the show about the show, and sometimes it is the show about the show. There's a lot of exciting things coming up. They've moved some of the stuff to an Etsy site. Eventually it's going to be, I think worldclassbullshitters.com or something like that. So get your Don Glover t-shirts. I've got one. I have put a tweet out on Twitter and it has been retweeted nearly 20 times, and has been liked by over 60 people. Maybe half a dozen I know. The rest I don't know who these people are. But it's constantly now in notifications and Twitter. It's like, your tweet has been shared. Your tweet, So I did not put the link in there, but my son liked it. He's camping. He and his friends say they're going to buy one. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe we'll all have one and wear it next year to episode 9 or something like that. I don't think they haven't seen Solo, so because they went camping the night it was live, so maybe we'll all go see it with our shirts on or something. But so I have been your host, Brainmuffin the Lifting Nerd, and LP, close us out.
Kids, whatever you do in life, do not do what I do every night. Do not sleep with a pair of scissors. I cannot get it out of my ass now. Help.
Let's cry off into the wilderness and scream at the moon. Good night.